Welcome to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge, the podcast where Christine says fear, questions everything, and takes bold action. Christine Spratley is a former professional boxer, nanny, and 29-plus year corporate warrior turned founder of HBIC Advisors, where she is a public speaker and coach. She's been saying fear her whole life, many times without even realizing it. So tune in, spread the word, and get ready, because this isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. Welcome. You are listening to Fuck Fear with Christine Spratley, living like an HBIC, a head bitch in charge. And this is going to be episode number 2 of an identity series that we're doing, focusing on kind of your identity and why it's important to figure it out, how the hell you figured it out. And in my prior episode, we talked about a little bit about what I do with some of my coaching clients and taking you through the 3 columns and the 4th column of really what do I pull from these roles. And the gist of it is, and I'm not going to spoil it for you because I want you to listen to it, right, Joe? What it comes down to is that when you're a wife, when you're a mother, when I'm going to use when I'm a wife, I'm a mother, whatever role, I'm a businesswoman, I'm a speaker, I'm all of these things, right? But those are not my identity. Those are the venues in which my identity gets to come to life, and the stages that I get my identity to play on. Okay? So I have an identity of me, of what I am and who I am as a person, as a being. And these are the roles in which I can display that person and that being. And it was funny because I was trying to figure out, all right, I'm going to have some guests on, but they weren't able to come in just yet. And so I was like, okay, well, how do I fill this segment? But life has a funny way. When you really open up to it, it is amazing how things happen. So we taped on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't even know.
A couple days ago.
Let's just go that way. It was a few days ago. And I knew my guests couldn't come on until next week. And now it's Friday. And between now and then, some things have happened. One of the things that has happened is that I run into people now and I talk to them. If you can imagine me, a talker, no one knows that. But I talk to a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. But I pay attention to what happens, and I notice the people that come into my life, and what we talk about actually typically kind of coincides with either what I'm going through or something that we've brought up in the segment. And we don't talk about podcast. It's just generally what is happening. So I got on a dating app. I'm not dating. Let's just put that out there. But I am curious about what the hell is going on. I am single. I don't know what, and I'm very upfront with it. I'm like, literally, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I want. And it's funny, Joe, you see all these things of, this is who I am. This is my profile. This is mine. I don't know what I have. I don't even know if I have a profile. I've got my couple pictures. I've got what I've done in my life. Some of the basics, just whatever. And so it's been funny, but I've been talking to people, and what's interesting is I was talking to this one gentleman, and we have a lot in common actually. And we were having a conversation the other day, and I said, "Yeah, how do you do this? Like, is this just it?" And I've been telling him kind of some of my experiences on the app, and I'm not like seeing people or anything. It's like I'm just texting people, literally. And he said this, and it was really interesting because it literally was a couple of days ago after this first session. He says, yeah, it's interesting because what people convey themselves are as on their profile, who they convey themselves to be on when you talk to them, and then who they are when you meet them. And we started talking about the gaps in between, because that's all identity. Identity is who I tell you I am, right? That's not really your identity. It's who I talk to you and tell you, yeah, that's a part, that comes through a little bit. But when I show up in person, and I start having interactions with you, I start to see who you are as your identity. But what was interesting was he brought up the fact is there's gaps between this. And so I started thinking, because I do try to do this, and I would encourage anybody to do this. When you hear something and we talk about it being out there, society or people do this, what I like to do is I like to go, Christine, do you do this? Where are your gaps? How do you know your gaps? And why do you have gaps? So I became curious about, wonder what I'm putting out there. Am I doing what I say? Blah, 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 blah. And the only way that I know that is if I'm truly understanding my identity, right? Because somebody can say, I'm a good guy. Or I could sit here and say, I am really funny. Well, what's funny? What's funny to you, Joe, is different than what's funny to some other people, right? If I say I'm a person that likes X, Y, and Z, or I'm a person that values honesty. Okay, you can tell me that all day long, but what I'm really going to find out is when I see you in action in situations that require different degrees of honesty and your willingness to be honest. And so I had to kind of look at myself and go, again, we've been talking about identity. Where am I with my identity? Which then kind of led to my conversation with this person. And it wasn't a deep conversation. We were like joking, cracking jokes and shit during it. But it got me thinking about, why is it so hard? Why are we putting out there something that we're not? Why, you were talking to me about this idea that you have, and it was like, why do people want this thing? They say they want it, but that's not real. It doesn't, when they get there, it doesn't jive because it's not really who they are. I had a guy in business tell me one time, it was a mentor, and he was in Dallas, Texas, and he ran big companies for land development. And he said, and I had this opportunity to take this high position, and it was very on the spot. And he said, Christine, he said, not everybody likes the fire. Everybody thinks they like the fire, but not everybody likes the fire. And it really made me think, because it really wasn't who I was. I don't like the fire. I am the great chaos manager and putter-outer, but I don't like certain fires. And it's not all fires, but I didn't like that fire. And it really made me think. So again, it was one of those things where it was like, what am I talking? What am I doing? Again, that column number 2 on my list of all the things that I'm doing. And then what do I like out of those? And what am I proud of? And what do I take value in? Okay. And it's not this, identities aren't something to me that are, okay, this is the way it is. And it's stuck like this forever. Like we talked about earlier before we got on the show about the different phases and seasons that we go in life. And a great example of this was the reason why I was late this morning. I'm going to blame Stephanie on this. Stephanie Butler, my speech coach, she's actually, I call her my voice coach because she really helps me refine my thought and my voice and how I want to show up in my speeches, what I want to convey. And what we were talking about identity. And it was funny because she's getting ready to get married. And I have just left a marriage. And we were talking about people that around her and just in general, how there's different takes on things like, oh, they're angry and they're never going to get married. They're never going to have I don't need a man, or I don't want this, or I don't want to do that. And then there's other women that are like, oh, I want 20 kids and this is my life. And this is their identity. And what we got talking about it is that there are lots of things, like I've said in my previous podcast, that when I was married, I loved the idea of marriage. And my marriage was good for a long time until it wasn't for a long time. And so, but that was the venue in which I displayed. So what did I like about it? I liked the intimacy of, having someone. I liked having the family. Those things were I could display my kindness, and I could give and I could receive from that. And it was funny because I was like telling her, I was like, no, go get married, go do it. If that's, and we laughed because I said, yeah, the ROI for me to get married again is going to be a hell of a lot higher, have to be a hell of a lot higher and a hell of a lot quicker, because I've done it. I've done those things. But before I didn't have the experience of walking down the aisle, of having someone commit. And so I look at those things differently like now, because my identity is still, but I still carry the things of wanting to have intimacy with another person, of caring about another person, of wanting to have that family and closeness and all of those other things. So it's like, all right, well, there's a different venue for me. It's not marriage, but it is for her. And so there's this gray area of being okay with the fact that your venue is changing, but taking your identity that was part of that and that you got to display on that and celebrating it in somewhere else in your life. And for her, it's really cool for me to be able to sit there and go, yeah, this is what I learned, and not be bitter, and let her know that the things, I was like, why would you not want to have kids? You're an amazing woman. That was just an amazing ability to be able to do and have an experience. Why would I tell you not to do it? I don't know. And I told her, I said, I don't know your husband or your fiance. He could be a dick bomb for all I know. And until I know that, I'm all for it. Until I start seeing signs from you that make me go, huh? Again, I want her to celebrate her identity. And if that's the venue in which she chooses to do that, I'm good with that. But if I am insecure, don't know my identity, and we have this gap of what I'm displaying, what does that do? Okay. Today, I get up early and I work, and like 4:00, that's when the dogs get up. And then I just get my computer and I work. And I read this post on LinkedIn today, and it was a great post. But one of the things about it was talking about how, some people had to witness your pain in order for it to be valid. And we've seen that. We see that and not just pain, but it got me thinking, where else do we make people validate stuff? And as a woman, I know women are going, we've had to validate shit. Women of color have to validate shit they have to validate and then validate. Like, we never take it for their word, and women in general, a lot of times, especially in business, they just don't take it. Like, we better have facts and figures in a chart. It's just been my experience. Now, some of that goes away with time because you've earned your stripes to a certain extent, and not that I'm not saying that we don't earn our stripes. That's different. But I'm saying we walk in there having earned our stripes, we still have to usually validate. There's just this thing that happens when we walk into the room. And one of the things, though, that's interesting to me is that when and Joey talked about this yesterday, and I'll draw it to it, or the other day, is that when I am insecure in my identity, when I don't know, and for whatever reason, I'm not looking, I'm not investigating, I'm not growing, what tends to happen, and what this woman, was saying, was people ask, make you validate it. What tends to happen with me is I start to interrogate myself and make me validate my pain, my competence, the way I think, the way I feel, my identity. I judge myself more. And when I do that, I judge others more. Then I am uncomfortable with you, your identity. I make you have to validate who you are. I'm not saying, and again, I want to be very clear here. I'm not saying everybody gets a free pass. I'm not saying we shouldn't be judgmental and all that. I'm talking about this need for them to justify themselves in order for me to be okay.
Your event doesn't just need a host, it needs a ringmaster of energy. Christine Spratley reads the room and keeps the momentum rolling like a damn orchestra conductor. With insight, humor, and a splash of mischief, she'll make sure your event isn't just organized, it's electric. After Christine takes the stage, your audience will be fully present, fired up, and not scrolling on their phones. Book her now at christinespratley.com.
Is it possible that the underlying issue that if you're having a hard time understanding, I feel like for me,
The thing that makes a lot of sense is when you don't know your identity, like you're saying, and so you haven't find out what's fulfilling to you. Most of us are chameleons or people pleasers, and when we come into a room insecure, like you're saying, we're looking for cues on how we should act from other people, and they don't have the same value for what makes us happy. Or most of the time, it's selfish on their behalf. Like if you're talking about an employee situation, it's like, great, how can I be a better employee? And that's more about what you can do to be better for them.
It goes back to the first column when we talked about the roles. It's always when I talk and I coach people, or when I'm having issues, it's because I am not comfortable with my own identity or don't know it, and I'm trying to fit the role in relative to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like I am more worried, and it's not even being worried. It is how I sit there and think. And like you said, you walk into a room and you're people pleasing, or I am looking for you. It's just funny. This one guy texted me and he was like, yeah, people on here, I don't want someone who is sucking things out of me to fulfill them. And I don't talk to that guy anymore because he's kind of weird, in my opinion. But that was one thing I took away from it was, that's right. We walk into the room, and when you're half full and you're looking for something from someone else, then you're asking about, ooh, I need you to give me this. And the more I do that, the more critical, and again, the more critical I am of you to fulfill that role.
Do you think the reason that it's so easy for people to do that is because it's easier to let other people tell you how to win than to figure out what you actually want and then have to figure out how to win?
Yeah, that's the hardest thing to do. Not just win, but live. We can say that we're in this culture of easy fixes and entitlement and all that shit, but if you really look, it's been like that. Whether it be this system we've set up and the white picket fence and or whether it be corporate or whatever, it is so much easier for a while to mail it in than it is to do the work. And for me personally, and this goes to it again, last night I was at dinner. We went into Cary and we ate at this restaurant. And we sat outside. It was 8:21 when we sat down. They closed at 9. And I waited tables, and the person that I was with, she had waited tables and bartended. So we were like, oh man, we're that table, that table that shows up. And we're like going, okay, we can't order anything. That's the last thing on the line that's been cooked and been sitting there. And but it was funny. And then we were talking about the waitress, and we tried to make her life a little bit easier. And because we were like, listen, you can go do your side work, and you can take care of your other tables, because she has a ton of other tables as well. And we understand, we're not a problem. But what was interesting is we started talking to her, and when she walked up, she had this big, gorgeous tattoo on her arm, and it wasn't colored or anything; it was black and white, or black and gray. And so I like those, me. And we both were like, let us see your tats. And so her face lit up, and she started telling it, and she had this tat, and I can't really describe it other than it was all up her arm, and she says it represents growth. All of her tattoos had images of something that represented something for her and were meaningful. And it was representing growth. And she says, this reminds me that my whole life is about growth, and which is about identity, growing, understanding. And anyway, we got talking to her, and she was like, I really needed this conversation because I've been having a really hard time. She said, I worked in corporate. I left corporate. Now I'm doing this, and I don't understand where I fit. And everyone is telling me where I should be, how it should be, what it should look like, what this looks like. And I was just like, no one has it figured out. Go listen to Pink's song, All I Know So Far. No one has it figured out. If they have the steps, it's got to be a framework, because you've got to build it. It is your cake to build. It is your identity. And then we started talking, and like I said, I think this is the deal. I think my thing here on life is to learn how to live, is to find out who I am and engage in that and become better and do that, because it helps And I don't think it's just for my benefit. I don't. I think it's for those from behind me and others. So they go, oh, she did that. Oh, she was confused, but it still looked okay, or it still was okay, or she baked her own cake. Now I'm going to go bake my cake, and I'm going to figure out how much of this pantry item I want to use. But yeah, Joe, everybody, it's so much easier mailing it in. But I don't think it's easier at first, because I think that's why we have so many miserable people, is because they're waiting for other people to fix their problems or make them okay, but they don't even know what makes them okay. It's kind of like the conversation we had the other day. It's like, how can I read your mind when they don't even know? And instead of fumbling around in the hallway, they open the door and they run in, they shut it. I am very open about everybody's safe with me. I don't know. And I'm not in the sense of your sexuality, who you are and who you see yourself, how you identify as yourself. And again, I'm really bad at this. So if I'm going to piss somebody off, I'm just going to let you know, I'm probably not going to use the right terminology. I'm not trying to be ignorant. I'm just ignorant on it because I haven't done my homework. I will do my homework next time. But there's this person that I follow on Instagram, and she's transsexual or whatever it's called. And again, I think that's right. What I came from that and listening to the clip was, it was said, what they really hate about us is that we are free and we are comfortable with who we are. And I don't care what your thoughts on who said it, okay? But take this thought from that. Because this is what I did, is I was like, who pisses me off? Like, there are people that piss you off and they've done you wrong and everything. But who are the ones that all of a sudden they piss you off and you don't really know why, or you've got a grudge against them? And again, it's typically people that I have more comfort in themselves than I have in myself. I'm not talking about people that have done you wrong, okay? But I wonder sometimes if, when we're out there looking and we're drawing these boxes, say, this has to be the way it is, rather than for you, because it's for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that people who don't like trans, that are against that are that. I'm saying that there's some insecurity with who they are and their identity, because we talked about this, Joe. If you know who you are, then why am I so worried about the other person? If I know who I am and I'm not afraid to find out, I know this happens in relationships. People shut the shit down. They will go emotional to here, but we're not going down 3 levels, because that's their shit. They're done. They can't do that. They're not comfortable. And then what happens is, the more you want to have that conversation or go deep, they're like, no. And they get mad. They get angry, But that's about them and their shit. It's about them not wanting, or it's about me going, hey. And so I resent the fact that other people are free in that they're comfortable with themselves, especially when I'm uncomfortable. So again, this is the identity. Who are you? And why the hell are you so afraid to be with you and find out who you are? Because the great thing about it is, if you don't like your identity, you get to change it. But you can't change it if you don't know what the hell it is. And if everything you do and your identity is based on how other people see you and the role you are playing, because all the roles can change. All the roles change. Even if you have the same freaking job your whole life, it's going to ebb, it's going to flow. You're going to have different people around you. You're going to have different, look at our world today in business. Completely, we talked about that a little bit, Joe. It's just crazy. I find it really interesting. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about this, because I'm going to talk to you about showing how this shows up in relationships for your identity, and how it shows up in business, your identity. But today I thought we'd talk, and then I'm going to have some people on as well, But then today I thought we would just sit and talk about, all right, why do we not go find out who the hell we are? Isn't that like our job in life is to live? And so why not? And I'll tell you, if you're afraid to, aren't you, isn't it scarier not to live? Not to go through your whole life knowing who you are and who you want to be? And I'm not trying to boo you into taking action. You can do whatever the hell you want. But I don't know. People are always looking for the fix or the thing in life, or, that gives them this or does this or makes them this, when it's looking at you in the mirror. That is the most interesting person. Okay, one last story, and then we'll have a whole podcast on this if we want to. But I was on this site, and this guy was like, I'm looking for the love of my life. The one true love of my life. And
he sounds like the guy that grows tobacco on The Simpsons.
Yeah. Cletus. But it's like, I'm like, okay, that's your opening line. And so again, me being a smartass said, well, I found mine. And it's me. And if that's an issue, keep scrolling. And then I was talking to Stephanie today, and I said, and we were literally talking, and she's like, yeah, I want my husband to be the love of his life, him be the love of his life, and me be the love of my life. And then together, they get to create this wonderful thing. And it's not the selfish. It's take it a step further. Open up, because I know some people are going, wow, you're selfish. It's all about you. It's all about everything. No. When you really love yourself and know yourself, you are so much more capable of giving and serving of others to others. You can't transmit something you haven't got. And something you need doesn't come from others. It comes from yourself when it comes to your identity. When it comes to filling the gaps and the holes inside. Anyway, for me, maybe you're different. If it is, go get it from everybody else. But again, if I have a headache and I need you to take the aspirin, you may or may not. But I know where that aspirin bottle is. I know how to look at me in the mirror. I don't always like to. It's been really hard these last 6 months. But I wouldn't trade that, because this is the life to live for me. So, ladies and gentlemen, why are you not getting to know you? And what fun you could have. Maybe the identity you want isn't in that role. Maybe you get to display it on a bigger, more grander stage, or a smaller, more intimate stage. I don't know. Maybe it's on the stage it needs to be, but make sure you understand that and celebrate that. Celebrate your identity. You are enough in that. And if you don't like something, tweak it, change it, grow. Grow, grow, grow. But don't be out there. Be inside. Take a look. Get it from yourself. Fill your cup up with who you are. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, Tubbs.
Thanks for tuning in to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, tell her what topics you want to hear, and share this episode with someone who could use a pantry full of boldness in their life. Remember, life isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell. So show up, take action, and keep saying fear.